Hi everyone, this is audap. Let's continue our game of Shinrai, Broken Beyond Despair on Series X. A heavy, almost suffocating silence had once again seized the dining hall, internally trying to process what had just occurred here tonight, as well as to understand how it could have come to this tragedy. We were all gathered around the dinner tables. All of us except Rai. She was currently in the manager's office, making a few phone calls. Apart from her, everyone was present though. Even Kotaba. While Taiko and I had been on the second floor, the others had carefully carried him here. He was lying on a futon near the entrance, still unconscious. Runa had applied some bandages to his forehead and, as far as that had been possible, wrapped some of his burns in cold, slightly wet towels. Unfortunately, there wasn't anything else we could do for him, except pray for the ambulance to arrive as soon as possible. Naturally, Taiko was worried about his friend the most. He kept glancing over to Kotaba every now and then, probably hoping for him to wake up. For the most part, he was glaring at Kamen, however, who was sitting directly opposite of him. She was quiet now, like the rest of us, her eyes drilling holes in the table's surface. From the moment we had brought her up here, until just a few moments ago, she had been weeping, however, mourning the loss of her best friend until her tears had dried up. Maybe she didn't have any left now. Or maybe she had realized that acting sad and broken wasn't going to win her any sympathy. At least that's what the others were telling her through their expressions. In regular intervals, each of them glared at Kamen for a couple moments, showering her with anger, disdain, relief, and disgust. No one could understand. Why had she done these terrible things to her classmates? To her friends? Everyone wanted to ask these questions, but in the end, no one did. Maybe they were afraid to hear her reasons. Maybe they didn't even want to hear them. Kamen had killed our friends. There was absolutely no justification for that. She was a murderer, and so she was treated as such. Taiko had even tied her up to ensure that she wasn't going to escape or hurt anyone else. At first she had resisted and fought against getting restrained, of course, but now it seemed as though she had given up all hope and simply accepted her fate.
Alright, I'm back.
And?
The police said they'll be here as soon as possible. It's hard for them to say how long it'll take them, though. Apparently there was an accident involving a truck on the mountain road.
What?
Yeah, my exact reaction. Looks like it went way too fast on its way back from the city and now blocks the road. Didn't happen that long ago either, so it'll be a while before they can get here.
And I take it the same applies to the ambulance?
I'm afraid so.
I see. Just our luck.
Well, guess that means all we can do now is wait, huh?
Yep, looks like it.
She closed the sliding door behind her and joined us at the table. Once she was sitting next to Taiko, it became completely silent again. The atmosphere was unbearably tense, even more so than it had been before. Out of the 7 people gathered in this room, not a single one said a word. Even the unusually so cheerful and energetic Mika looked rather miserable, which was quite an odd sight. It was to be expected, though. It was late, and we were tired and exhausted, and I guess I didn't even need to mention it. Bara-chan leaned against me, resting her head on my shoulder. She was trying hard not to doze off. It was starting to get difficult for me to keep my eyes open as well, but I still couldn't allow myself to fall asleep. Not yet. There was something that needed to be resolved first. And maybe now, with everyone present, it was the right time to do so. There was nothing else left to do but wait anyway. Before I actually got the chance to raise my voice, however... Aiga-san, why? Why did you do it? Finally, someone managed to ask that question that's been weighing on everyone's minds. All of us immediately looked at Kamen, waiting for her response, but... there was none. Kamen didn't even raise her head to look at Runa. Just like when we had found her upstairs, she seemed completely absent-minded. Mori-san and Shirataki-san were your friends, were they not? How could you do this to them? And Gaikoko-san too. What did they do to you to deserve this? We waited another few moments for an answer, but Kamen still didn't show any reaction. I had kind of given up hope that she would, but just when Runa was about to speak again... It wasn't me. It was faint, almost like a whisper, but all of us heard it.
With tears welling up in her eyes again, she continued in an unstable, shaky voice that seemed like it could break at any second. It wasn't me. I didn't do it. You have to believe me. I didn't do it.
Do you honestly think we'll believe that? You're the only one who could have started the fire. The others even saw you kill Hiro. Don't try to talk yourself out of this.
But it wasn't me. I swear.
Well, if it wasn't you, then who was it, huh?
Once again, we were all waiting for her response, but nothing came.
Of course you wouldn't have an answer for that. Because you're the one who did it, right? At the very least, have the decency to admit your crimes. You owe that to your victims. And to us, who foolishly thought of you as a friend. Or do you want me to squeeze a confession out of you?
No. It wasn't me. I swear it wasn't me. Please believe me. I didn't.
The tone of her voice became more desperate, as did the expression on her face. Even she seemed to realize that, in the face of the facts, it was hard to buy anything she said. You were missing for quite a long while. Ever since the discovery of Momoko's body, you didn't return to the dining hall. If you didn't kill Hiro and start the fire during all that time, then what else have you been doing? Care to explain?
I did nothing. I was just hiding.
Hiding? Sure. And from what were you hiding and where? Why didn't you come back to the dining hall? To where everyone else was waiting for you? Cat got your tongue.
It looked like Kamen didn't have anything to counter. Taiko had brought up a few valid points after all. She had been missing for a rather long time, so if she hadn't killed anyone, as she claimed, then what exactly had she been doing, and where had she been hiding? This truly seemed mighty suspicious, and the fact that she didn't really explain it to us didn't help her case either. But neither did the fact that Rai, Bada-chan, and I had seen her ram that knife into Hiro's throat. No matter how you looked at it, everything pointed to her. And no amount of tears she produced seemed to convince anyone otherwise. After all, we all knew how great of an actress she was. I didn't kill them. I would never kill anyone. Especially not Momo. I would never kill her. Why would I kill my best friend?
Ha! Come on. The fact alone you were friends makes you the most likely suspect.
What?
Whenever people are close, it's easy for frictions to arise between them. Momoko was only close to two people, Hiro and you. She barely talked to anyone else. As far as I know, she basically never even met with anyone but you two outside of school. In other words, you and Hiro would be the most likely with a motive, since you were the only ones who really had anything to do with her.
No, you got it wrong. That's not...
Stop it!
Taiko's sudden yelling startled not only Kamen, but every single one of us. Furious, he rose to his feet, staring at her with white-knuckled fists.
Stop trying to talk yourself out of this. I'm sick of your goddamn bullshit. All I want to hear is the reason why you did this. You set my best friend on fire, goddammit. You left him in the basement to burn fucking alive. Do you have any idea what the hell you've done?
His yelling only made things worse. Kamen tried to find the strength to reply, but the tears just kept coming, drowning everything she wanted to say. Helplessly, she looked at each of us, hoping that someone would come to her aid, that any of us would take her side. But of course, no one did. On the contrary. I also want to know. To think that one of my friends is a murderer. Please, at least tell us why. Why did you kill them?
What Kamen did was despicable. But Kamen at least owes us an explanation.
Come on, Kamen. You had a reason to do these things, didn't you? I mean, surely you wouldn't kill anyone just 'cause, right? Just tell us, Aiga-san. What did Mori-san, Shirataki-san, and Gakuko-san do to deserve this? Before she could get anything out, her voice cracked into a high-pitched squeal, followed by uncontrolled wailing. Taking several frantic breaths, she kept looking around for help, but all she found was contempt. Taiko continued yelling, basically trying to force a confession out of her. I honestly felt sorry for Kamen. It was hard to believe that her reaction was merely acted, but I seemed to be the only one thinking that way. No one else felt any pity for her. They had made that quite clear. The only one who hadn't yet was me. Maybe that was why her big wet eyes kept coming back to mine. Curses. I didn't know why now, of all times, it was so hard for me to raise my voice. But I couldn't let it go like this. I couldn't let it go on like this. I had to do something, so... Once again, silence. My palms hurt a little, but at least everyone's attention was now directed at me. They looked pretty bewildered. Even more so when I rose to my feet and began to speak. Okay, that's enough. You're going too far. And you're being unreasonable. Unreasonable? What are you talking about? If you hadn't noticed yet, you're scaring her. Just like everyone else here, Common's quite shaken. Which is understandable considering she lost her best friend tonight. Yeah, because she killed her. Come on, don't tell me you're falling for her act. You know the truth, don't you? So how can you come to her defense like that? Without replying, I marched around the table, everyone's puzzled gazes following me. None of them could believe it when I crouched down behind Common to untie her hands. Not even Common herself. Shinpaku? What are you... Sorry, I shouldn't have let them tie you up in the first place. Huh? I sat down next to her, taking her cold, shaking hands into mine. For a moment, her confusion stopped the flood of tears. I bet I was the last person she had expected to do something like this. Unable to believe it, she gaped at me, waiting for an explanation. Just like everyone else. What you doing, Raka-chan? You can't honestly believe her. We saw her, remember? We saw her kill Hiro. And she's the only one who could have started that fire. Which means she's got to be the one who killed Momoko. She even killed her best friend. Oh, I actually don't think she killed her. I mean, it's a little too convenient, to be quite frank. Also, no, she didn't. What? She didn't kill Momoko? Once again, everyone stared at me with widened eyes, especially Common, who looked like she was unsure whether or not she could trust her ears. Shinpaku? Are you serious? Of course I am. You didn't kill Momoko. I'm absolutely certain of that. Huh? And her eyes got even bigger. I noticed a glimmer of hope sparking up inside of them. For a moment she looked extremely relieved and happy that her call for help had been answered. However, this relief and happiness was only short-lived. What the heck are you saying? If Kama didn't kill Momoko, then who did? Yeah, someone's gotta killed her. And earlier, when Adam... Oh wait, what the fuck? Sentence. And earlier, when Adam whole murder theory came up, it was said that only 4 people could have been able to do it. Yes, everyone who ran after her during the first blackout. And if you're saying it wasn't common, that only leaves the 3 others. So, this was it. The moment of truth. It was finally time to present them the results of my investigation. What had transpired here tonight was a rather complex chain of events, but I was going to explain everything as best I could, so that they, too, would be able to understand the tragic truth behind it. To be quite honest, I still hadn't figured it out myself. There were still some questions I couldn't answer. That's why I had been hesitant about speaking up, but I guess there was no turning back now. I just had to solve those remaining questions along my way to the truth. And the first step to get there was to state the name of the one responsible for Momoko's mysterious death. Okay, so it wasn't Kotaba. And it wasn't Hiro. It's not Mika, because she was with us the whole time. It's not Taiko. Although, he's acting kind of funny, but it's probably not him. Rai wasn't Nobara, because Nobara was me. That just leaves Momoko. She killed herself.
Eh? Momoko?
Hey! Are you honestly telling me now that Momo committed suicide after all?
Yes.
Come on, that's nonsense. Earlier you agreed with me that there has to be more to this than just a simple suicide, and now you say that's exactly what it is? Besides, even if it was suicide, what does it change? We're talking about Kamon's guilt right here, aren't we? And she's definitely responsible for Hiro and Kotoba. Even you can't deny that.
No, she didn't kill anyone.
Are you for real? I honestly can't believe you. This is getting ridiculous. If you're telling us that Kamon didn't kill anyone, then what exactly happened here, huh? Someone's got to be the murderer, and I thought you saw her kill Hiro yourself.
Let me replace the batteries. Sorry about that. Yeah, wireless controllers need batteries. It's weird that it doesn't tell you ahead of time that the battery's running low or whatever.
So what the hell is this all about? I swear if you're lying to protect her for whatever reason, I won't forgive you. You better have a good explanation for this as well as something to prove it. Otherwise...
Wow, Taiko was getting kind of scary. He sure was pissed. Not that I could blame him, though. Not after what happened to his best friend. Of course, he wanted to know the reason for it, as well as to bring the person responsible for it to justice. However, his anger was blinding him, and it was affecting his rationality. Well, in that case, I just had to prove it to him beyond the shadow of a doubt. Prove to him that the real mastermind behind tonight's events was none other than... It was Momoko. Because it's like the least likely thing to happen, so it must mean that that's the answer.
Huh? Wait, what?
Have you lost your mind? Just a moment ago you told us that Momoko committed suicide, and now you're telling us that she's the one who stabbed Hiro and set Kotoba on fire? How the hell does that work? Is Raiko feeling alright? Or did she hit her head too hard when jumping onto that window?
Honestly, Shinpuku-san, that you of all people would say such a thing. Yeah, this really isn't the time for jokes, you know.
She ain't joking. She's serious. Right? I'm always serious.
Well, I'm curious how you want to explain this then.
It's actually quite simple. I admit that it might appear somewhat ludicrous at first, but it makes a lot of sense once you realize that all of us made one big wrong assumption. We wrongly assumed that, Momoko died first. Momoko hanged herself. Momoko's murdered. Those are all the same thing.
Said Momoko died first then. We wrongly assumed that Momoko died first when, in reality, she was the last one to die.
Are you kidding me? She was the last one to die? Are you really alright?
Basically what I'm saying is that her initial death during the first blackout was faked.
She faked her own death?
Yes, that was the only thing that was the only way that everything made sense. Momoko had committed suicide, but she was also responsible for everything else that had happened here tonight. And the only way to explain this apparent contradiction was that she had faked her death, went on to stab Hiro, then set the basement on fire, and eventually committed suicide for real. While examining Momoko's body, it had struck me as kinda odd that we found her hanging from the ceiling. After all, when we had discovered her earlier, right after the first blackout, Hiro and Kamen had gone into the guest room in order to get her down. So how come she was still hanging there with that rope around her neck?
Maybe they couldn't get her down and just let her hang there?
No, because we went in there and she was gone.
Eh? Why is it impossible?
I'd like to know that myself. I'm not just going to take your word for it, especially when it's about something so ridiculous. So I hope you can prove it.
Of course I can. Actually, Bada-chan can confirm it for us. And so can Rai.
Rai and I?
Huh? What are you talking about?
Yeah, what she said. I ain't got a clue what you mean.
Think back to when the three of us went upstairs in order to check on Hiro and Kamen. What exactly did we see when we entered the room?
There was Kamen sitting on the floor. And she was raising that knife to stab Hiro. That's about all I could...
Do you realize it yet? Something was missing from that scene. Or rather, someone.
You're right. Momoko's corpse wasn't there.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was pretty dark and stuff, but I'm sure we would have seen a corpse hanging from the ceiling in the center of the room. Indeed. Back then, everything had happened rather quickly, and our attention had obviously been focused on the scene playing out in front of us. Still, in retrospect, I had this nagging feeling as though something had been missing from that scene. And now I knew what it was. Momoko. Of course, the most logical conclusion was that Hiro and Kamen had lowered her body after all, and maybe put her in a corner of the room where we hadn't been able to see her. However, that would have been strange too. When Taiko and I had run to the second floor after hearing Kamen scream, Momoko had been hanging from the ceiling again. So, how was that possible? Had someone hanged her a second time?
Oh, I admit it sounds a little odd, but we can't rule it out. It's perfectly possible that Kamen did it. I mean, we found her in front of that guest room. For whatever reason, she could have decided to hang Momoko again.
No, I didn't. I swear I didn't do that.
It's okay, Kamen, don't worry. I know you didn't. And I'm going to prove it.
Shinmiku.
Mika still doesn't get it. Why is Raiko so convinced that Momoko is the culprit and Kamen is innocent? Didn't Raiko, Rai, and Nobara see Kamen kill Hiro?
Yeah, Mika's got a point. The three of us clearly saw it, so...
But did we really see it clearly?
Huh?
Again, think back to what we could actually see. It was pretty dark inside that guest room, and the person in front of us was wearing a cape and a hat with a rather wide brim. The face was completely obscured by shadows. We only assumed it was Kamen due to the clothes, but... Can you honestly say that you were able to clearly recognize her face?
I guess I gotta admit, I didn't get to see her face. It was really too dark. I didn't even recognize Hiro until I stood in front of him. And now that I think about it, I didn't see Kamen's long ponytail when she jumped out of the window either, so So, are you really saying that it was Momoko we saw out there, dressed up as Common? I don't know about that. Sure, we couldn't clearly recognize her face, but that doesn't automatically mean it was Momoko. While that may be true, you have to admit that it's at least a possibility.
No, it's not. It would only be a possibility if Momoko actually did fake her suicide. But I say that's impossible. I mean, don't you think anyone would have noticed? Getting hanged isn't really something that's easy to fake, and I thought you all saw her hanging there. Okay. Mika definitely saw a dead Momoko hanging from the ceiling. And Hiro and Kamen even checked Momoko's pulse and confirmed that Momoko was dead. See? See? What you're saying doesn't add up. Hiro and Kamen definitely would have noticed. Are you proposing that Momoko also faked not having a pulse somehow?
I have to agree. That just doesn't seem feasible. And even if you were right, Shibuku-san, there's so many other things that would have been impossible for Mori-san to accomplish. Runa certainly brought up an interesting point. Fooling Kamen and Hiro would have been hard enough, but on top of that, we have mysteriously locked and unlocked doors, the dead reception phone, 2 power outages, arson, murder. I had to admit all of that sounded a bit too much for a single person to pull off. Yeah, how the heck would she have done that all by herself? That sounds pretty much impossible. She had accomplices. Well,
Let's see. So let's think about this. So first, someone had to unlock the room. Now, that's probably going to be Kotoba-san, right? Because he ran out first. Or no, he got the keys after it was dark to go to the bathroom. But what if he really went upstairs to unlock the guest room because he was working with Momoko? And so that's where Momoko and Hiro were hiding during the blackout, right? That would make sense. So she had multiple accomplices. If it's impossible for her to do all those things alone, then that would be the logical consequence, right?
I'd say this is getting ridiculous, but we're long past that. Well, how many accomplices did she have then? I want a concrete number, no vague estimates.
Well, she had to have 3. She had to have Hiro himself. She had to have Kotoba.
3?
Are you serious? Including Momo herself, that'd be almost half of our group.
Seriously? Don't you think that sounds a bit absurd?
No. She definitely had 3 accomplices.
I can't believe I'm even asking this, but who would those accomplices be?
It shouldn't be too hard to figure out if you go by process of elimination. It's actually rather obvious, I'd say. Just to fake her suicide, Momoko already needed the help of 2 people. And naturally those 2 were the same ones who confirmed her death. Hiro and you, Kamen. Without you, it never would have worked. Yes, when we had discovered Momoko after the first blackout, Hiro and Kamen had been the only ones to get close to her. Mika and Runa had stayed outside the room, and Bada-chan and I had left to call for help. Rai and Taiko had never seen her back then. In other words, none of us had ever confirmed Momoko's death for ourselves. Just like Mika had simply taken Hiro and Kamen's words for granted, I had believed her when she had brought the news.
You can forget the phone now. Momoko is dead.
That can't be true. Mika, tell me that's not true.
Mika doesn't die. But if you don't want to believe Mika, why not go take a look for yourself?
Because of the second blackout, we had never actually gotten a chance to do that, but we should have. Not confirming Momoko's death for myself had been an elementary mistake.
Okay, I guess that makes sense, but who's the third accomplice then?
If I'd considered the victims as well as what had happened, and what Momoko, Hiro, and Kamen had been able to do, there was only one other person that came into question. Kotoba, because he clearly had the keys during the first blackout.
This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. Why the hell would Kotoba help her with that? Faking her death, killing Hiro, getting himself burned, and blaming everything on Kamen? Why would any of those three help her with that? Don't you realize how utterly absurd this is?
Come on, they obviously didn't know about Momoko's true intentions. She fooled them. Just like she fooled every single one of us.
And how exactly did she do that?
By telling them that it was going to be a harmless prank, of course.
A prank? Yes, the idea of a prank had been brought up on multiple occasions tonight. Originally, Rai and Runa had wanted to play one on us. A rather morbid one at that, pretending that one of them would kill the other. Thanks to Kamen, who had been involved in the party preparations, Momoko might have learned about that prank. After the first blackout, when I had told Mika that Rai wanted to scare us upon our return to the dining hall, she had immediately wanted to devise a counterattack in order to turn the tables on our host. Now, what if Momoko had proposed the exact same thing to her friends? Playing a prank as morbid as Rai and Runa's on the rest of us. A prank that involved one of them dying.
Well, that's insane. Even if they had thought it was just going to be a prank, they would have never helped her with something like that. Especially not Kotoba.
Why not? Kamen was Momoko's best friend, so it's not that hard to imagine that she would have helped her. And you know what Hiro was like. Of course, he wouldn't have been up for it, if only to prove that he could play a better prank than Rai. As for Kotoba, you said it yourself earlier.
I know he's a fool. I know he only does a lot of really stupid stuff, but this? As long as there's no cute girls waiting as a reward for him, he wouldn't go through all that trouble. And speaking of cute girls, I mean, he's got a thing for nearly every girl in our class, but Momoko has always been his number one on his list.
Given his personality, there's no way he would have said no to Momoko. On the contrary, he would have gladly done anything for her, don't you think? Yes, none of them would have objected to the idea, and that's what Momoko used to her advantage. By telling them they were going to play a prank on us, she could get them to unknowingly help her achieve her true goal.
So you're saying that she purposely chose all of her victims as her accomplices, and then manipulated them into bringing forth their own demise?
Exactly.
Ugh.
He was looking at me like I was out of my mind, but I was confident in my theory. If Momoko was behind all this, it would have explained everything, even why Kamen hadn't told us the name of the real culprit. She had known that no one would have believed her, just like no one wanted to believe me right now.
I know that Kamen's the only possible suspect in your eyes, which makes it hard to trust her words, but how about we just give her a chance to explain herself? If anyone would know the truth, it's her, right?
He didn't seem happy with his proposal, but since he didn't say anything against it, I simply took that as an okay and turned to Kamen. Once again, everyone's attention shifted towards her as she began to explain. Sorry.
It's just as Shinpiku said. Hiro, Kotoba, and I, we helped Momo fake her suicide. We helped her fool all of you into thinking that she was dead. So, it was really supposed to be a prank then? Yes. Remember how I overheard you and Runa talking about your Halloween party at school? You two mentioned something about a prank to shock all of us, especially Shinpiku. I walked up to you guys and asked if I could be a part of it. In return, I promised not to tell anyone about your plans, but... You did. You told Momoko. Yes, I told her that same day after school on our way home. And then 2 days later, when we were at the park... Hey, Kamen. You know, I've been thinking about what you told me regarding Rai and Runa's Halloween party. You know, the whole thing about their prank. Yes? What about it? How about we play a prank on them ourselves? Huh? Are you serious? Of course. They'll never expect that. I already have a really neat idea. Oh? I'll tell you later when we meet up with Hiro. I'm gonna have to involve him too. This is gonna be fun. Later that day, she told us her plan. Hiro was all for it, of course. He wanted to prove that he could pull off a much better prank than Rai. I wasn't sure about the whole thing, though. I mean, pretending that one of us died? I already thought that was a little mean when you proposed it. Then again, you said you were planning the exact same thing. I thought it'd kind of serve you right. And in the end, I just couldn't say no to Momo. I see. But how does Kotoba fit into all this? I thought Hiro hated him, and Momoko didn't really like him that much either, did she? So why did you guys team up with him? Or was it Raiko-chan? Or was Raiko-chan wrong about that? No, she's right about that too. It surprised me as well when Momo told us she wanted to involve Kotoba. However, she said that we needed the help of at least one more person. We obviously couldn't ask you or Runa, and the others, especially Taiko and Shinpaku, would never have agreed to it. That only really left Kotoba, and well, he was easy to win over anyway. Just like what Shinpaku said, he was ecstatic to be of help. Anyway, like I said, it was all supposed to be a prank. I had no idea of Momo's true intentions. I would have never thought that she wanted to kill Hiro, Kotoba, and even herself, and then blame everything on me. Yeah, that's really hard to believe.
It did seem inconceivable to imagine that Momoko had come up with such a devious plan. Not only had she wanted to kill Hiro and Kotoba, she had even manipulated them into helping her with that. And to top it all off, she tried to frame Kamen, her best friend, for it. This picture of her, the picture of a cruel, calculating murderer, it simply didn't fit together with the picture of her that had slowly evolved over the course of the last few months, ever since the school year had started. I guess it was just like Kamen had said earlier tonight. A book cannot be judged by its cover. Still, even though I knew that this was the truth, I couldn't bring myself to believe it.
And neither can I. I can't believe any of this. Especially not the words of a suspect.
But I'm telling the truth.
That's what you say, but for all we know, you could be adapting to Reiko's little story in order to push the blame on Momoko. Besides, words alone aren't going to convince me anyway. I want to see actual proof that Momoko is behind all this.
Oh, you mean like you showed us actual proof that Kamen killed her? Don't worry. Unlike you, I do possess the necessary evidence to support my claims. If you want me to, I can prove it to you right here, right now. But I want you to apologize to Kamen first. She might be innocent, you know. Or do you have any actual proof that she's the culprit?
Taiko didn't reply. He knew as well as I that there was no such proof. I had to admit that, at first glance, it looked as though Kamen was the culprit, but in the end, that was nothing more than an assumption mostly based on the testimony of 3 witnesses. It had already been proven that these testimonies were anything but reliable. After all, none of us had been able to recognize the face of the person we had seen. Of course, there was still the fact that Kamen had been missing for a long period of time, but even though it did make her look suspicious, it really didn't prove anything either. And in the case of Momoko's death, you didn't even have anything at all. You said that since Kamen probably did all those other bad things, she must have also killed Momoko. That was basically your line of reasoning, wasn't it?
I have to admit that was rather unreasonable, so I apologize about that. It might be a poor excuse, but all I could think about was Kotoba. I was angry. Still am. And I vented my anger on you without actually thinking about the whole thing. Without having any actual proof of your guilt. That was wrong.
Taiko.
I mean, one of us had to be the culprit, and even now you're the most likely candidate. At least to me. Still, I shouldn't have lashed out at you like that. You're our classmate, our friend. Precisely because I see you as such, it should be my duty to consider all possibilities before jumping to conclusions. I can't believe I let my emotions get the better of me like that. I'm really sorry, Kamen. But I've cooled down now, and I'm willing to listen. In the end, all I want to know is the truth. So how about this? Raiko-chan?
Yes?
I want to know exactly what happened here tonight, so we're going through everything together from start to finish until we arrive at the truth. You claim to have reached it, but I'm still skeptical. Nevertheless, I'll give you a chance to explain yourself. Don't get me wrong, though. As I said, I still think Kamen's the most likely suspect, but if you can prove me wrong, that's fine by me. I'm sure you have no objections.
Sounds good to me. Let's do it.
Alright, let's find out the truth then. All of us. Together. And this time, we will be as thorough as we can be, so that we can get to a conclusion that doesn't leave any room for doubt.
While he said this, Tycho looked at the others, who seemed a little surprised, but quickly gave him a collective nod, their eyes brimming with determination. Only Common kept looking around with a confused expression on her face, almost though she was unsure whether she was dreaming or not. Don't worry, Common. I'll prove your innocence, I promise. Just hang in there a little longer. Shinpaku, why? Why are you doing this for me?
The look in her eyes. Was it really that hard for her to believe? Well, I guess it was a little weird. I mean, she had always treated me like crap, and while I had done my best to ignore her, never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined that there'd come a day when I tried to help her like this. Still, I'm doing this because I know the truth, and because I cannot stand by and watch how someone is wrongly accused of a crime they did not commit. To be quite honest, that wasn't the whole truth. It wasn't just because I knew she was innocent and felt like it was my duty to clear things up. I really wanted to help her. Genuinely help her. From the bottom of my heart. Of course, there was no way in hell I could tell her that. I didn't even really know myself why I felt that way. Maybe it was because all of this felt so familiar. Because she reminded me of someone. Someone from long ago.
Shinpaku, you're back. You're finally back.
Hmm? What was she talking about? I was back? When had I ever been gone? I had no clue what was going on, but before I could ponder this question any further... Hey, let's not waste any more time, okay? There's a lot of things to talk about, and I'd like to clear this up before the police arrive, so...
Yes, of course. He was right. It would have been best to have this solved before the police arrived, so we could give them the name of the real culprit. Besides, everyone seemed eager to hear my deductions, so... Without further ado, it was time to solve all those mysteries we had encountered tonight, and in doing so, get to the bottom of this terrifying tragedy. Oh, well. Oddly enough... look at the time. It's... Actually, 45 minutes are up. This is Apostrophe! And you've been watching Shinrai, Broken Beyond Despair on Series X. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching. I will see you at the next stream.